Good afternoon, everybody, and hope you're having a lovely Wednesday. Now, today we are going to be looking at the topic of financial education. Why does it matter, and what is the relevance to us as careers professionals? So, welcome to the We Are Careers show. If you've not joined us before, this is your fortnightly bite-sized CPD snippet for everyone working in and across the careers sector. As always, there are two of us here today, our kind of dream team. We like maybe slightly kind of unmodestly calling ourselves, of myself and Sabiha. If you've not met me before, my name's Chris Webb. I'm a higher education careers professional, member of the CDI and RCDP, and I'm joined as always by my fantastic co-host, Meet Sabiha. So Sabiha, are you having a good Wednesday? I know not as good as it could be.
Do you know what? I'm going to be. I'm at the sort of kind of back end now of being ill. I've been absolutely horrible. So if any of you are currently feeling really low and you're watching this, maybe perhaps you've had to take a sick day and you've snuggled up and you've got your cup of tea or coffee or whatever that is. Okay, let us know. Use that chat box feature and let us know, where are you watching from. And if you've been under the weather, I'm wishing you a speedy recovery. Yeah, I've just been a little bit under the weather, but making a really good full recovery. For those of you that don't know me, I'm known as Meet Sabiha, and I work internationally, helping young professionals get unstuck and get back into career flow without the stress. And I also happen to be the creator of the I Am Thriving Career Coaching Program, which is where I work with international coaches and I help them show you and use models to help create even more powerful and impactful transformation during their coaching sessions without wasting any time on resources and techniques that don't work. Now, each show we like to celebrate, and we like to do what we refer to as our hashtag careers cheers. So for those of you that have been submitting nominations and nominating your fellow colleagues, thank you so much. And please keep them coming in. And if you're watching the show for the very first time, or perhaps maybe you're watching on the replay, and if you're a regular viewer, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's great to have you here. Welcome back. If you're watching for the first time, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that bell button. And the reason why I like to encourage you to sort of kind of hit the subscription button and that bell button is because A, if you're anything like many of our viewers, you want regular notifications and reminders of when the show's coming up. So it will do that for you automatically. But also as well, we're trying to grow this channel. We're trying to reach even more people who will benefit from this content, and you will help us do that by making sure that you subscribe. So please do, like I say, help us enjoy that. Now, Chris, for our careers cheers today, who are we cheering on this week?
We've got a few this week, Sue. We've got a few. So the first one is kind of going to be a recurring one that we're going to keep going back to for as long as we can, really. And we might make it a bit more of a regular feature as well. Okay. And this is another plug for our Careers Impact hashtag. So this is a campaign at the moment CDI are running in order to kind of collate inspirational stories of how careers professionals have been supporting their clients in the work that they do, whatever context that might be in. We've seen some really, really interesting ones that have been shared kind of throughout the weeks. Chris Target is a regular poster on this hashtag, so you might have seen some of his if you're a big LinkedIn user. But yeah, this is really kind of important one in terms of sort of us trying to celebrate and really be vocal about what we do in the sector. And I know, Sabiha, I think you and I are probably going to try and share some stuff, aren't we, maybe over the next few months.
We are indeed. Now, one that I did want to shout out to, and it's something that's close to your heart, Chris, and perhaps some of you are watching right now who are a member of this association. And if you are, let us know. Jump into the chat box and let us know. And that's a shout out to the Careers Writers Association, who are going to be having their first in-person meeting. Can you believe in 3 years? I bet you all can, actually. I think too. In London. So are you going to be attending? Are you watching right now? Will you be attending? If you are, let us know. And what are you most looking forward to? And then, Chris, I think you've got a couple more.
I got just one more, and yeah, I'm very excited to be attending the Career Writers Association meeting. I think it's probably like close to 3 years since I joined, and now actually get to meet a lot of these people in real life, which is great. So yeah, some will be attending virtually tomorrow, but if you're going to be there, really looking forward to seeing you in whichever capacity. And our final kind of careers cheers for the week is just kind of recognition of Global Careers Month. So this is a kind of initiative with a lot of different sort of stakeholders behind it, including European Commission, CEDEFOP, UNESCO, World Bank, lots and lots of different people involved. It's being celebrated in various kind of by various careers organisations across the not just kind of in Europe, but also across the world. So CERIC in Canada, for example. And there's some really good hashtags you can keep an eye on, including Global Careers Month and the Amplifier 2022 hashtag. So have a look out for those. I'm going to be sharing a little bit more about Global Careers Month at the end, but a big shout out. It's nice to have something that is truly global, like we talked about on our last episode. So those are our careers cheers for the week.
Thank you, Chris. Now, Chris said earlier, we're going to be talking about financial literacy and why it matters as career professionals. Or do you think it doesn't matter? Maybe you think financial literacy and education doesn't matter at all. And if that's where you stand, let us know. Explain to, drop us a comment. Let us know where you sit on the fence with this. And so you probably noticed, viewers, today that we've got not just one, but two guest today with us today. So I'm going to head on over to Rachel first. Rachel, for viewers that don't know you and are introducing you, we love taking and introducing new voices to our audiences. So for our audience today, can you tell us a little bit more about the role that you have at Gradconsult and your involvement in the Money Minds project?
Yeah, absolutely. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on the show. So I'm Rachel. I'm a senior consultant with Gradconsult. So Gradconsult is an independent consultancy, and we focus on that connection between employers and educators. So I like to think of those kind of transition moments that we all have in our career. So we do work with people who are further on in their career, moving into management roles or senior leadership at the top of an organization. But our specialism and our focus is that transition, that change from education into employment. So we've worked with about 75% of the UK's universities. We work with careers professionals, work with students directly, everything from strategy design to practical skills development. And then obviously from the other side, we work with employers. So huge range of employers across the UK and globally. How can they attract, retain, and develop these amazing people who are entering the workforce early in their career? So that's what we do. And that's why this project was so exciting for us to be part of, because what other incredibly important and significant moment of transition is there in your career, that moment of coming to the end of your schooling and thinking, well, what is next for me? So our role in this project was to look at what is it that young people need to know in terms of financial education, financial literacy and understanding. What do they want to know, and how best can we enable them to learn it? What are the best approaches, tools, what's going to be most interesting, engaging, etc. So again, my background is in learning and development, so it's absolutely my passion is encouraging and enabling people to learn the skills that they need to enable them to flourish. So that's, again, it's such a brilliant project to be part of. So we did lots of research, looking at, what is it that young people need to know? We did some focus groups in schools with pupils, with young people, with teachers, others in the school environment. But we also had a fantastic teacher steering group. So I think there was 12 different teachers from across the country, different types of schools, different subjects that they teach, and they really fed into the project, which was fantastic to work with them, getting their feedback, getting their ideas, making sure what we did was super practical, useful, relevant, interesting, able to be used in their schools. So yeah, that was Gradconsult. That was my part in the project. I'm also going to give a little shout out to Chatter, who kind of spearheaded the project, who we worked with, and they were the ones who kind of brought it all to life, if you like. We looked at the learning content, what should be in it, and they made that a reality. So they created the site, they made it look and feel really interesting and engaging, brought it all to life. So unfortunately they couldn't be here today with us, but yeah, a big shout out to Chatter for their part in this exciting project.
I love that, Rachel. I mean, is anybody else feeling Rachel's enthusiasm and her passion for what she does? I mean, it's just literally bouncing off the screen, isn't it? So join in, guys, viewers. If you've got any questions, Rachel sort of kind of shared with us a little bit about, what they're doing at Gradconsult, but also as well the project that she's been working with them, as well. Around financial literacy as well. So if there's questions that you have for her, pop them in the chat box, let us know. And fingers crossed, through the show today at some point, we'll get to this, as we always like to bring in our audience as well. And, I had a lot of questions that popped up into my mind, because one of the things that you said, Rachel, around, what your audience say that they want, when you're doing the research, and what they actually need, and whether or not there's a mismatch with that. But before we sort of kind of get into that, because I know Chris has got a whole host of questions, I want to bring Fiona in. So welcome, Fiona. And I know you had a bit of a flustered sort of kind of time trying to get yourself on here, but here you are. We're so happy that you are as well. I know the viewers are really happy to see you here today as well. So Fiona, obviously, your role is a little bit different. You work in finance as well. However, you happen to work with, really popular. Many of you have probably heard of it. Maybe you bank with this particular building society yourselves, or maybe you even worked in banking yourselves. Viewers, perhaps you might be a career professional now, but you started out in banking and finance. Now, Fiona works at Yorkshire Building Society and has a background in financial education. So, Fiona, sort of kind of what got you into that line of work, and when you say financial education, what do you mean by that? What does that look like for you?
So thank you. Yeah, I think probably anyone who has ever worked in a financial institution or banking kind of knows how difficult it is to sometimes access things. So getting here with a mission, but I'm here now, so that's all good. So I currently work for Yorkshire Building Society as what we call a community manager, and that's part of the social purpose and sustainability team. I think one thing that's really key about Yorkshire Building Society is that they are a purpose-led organisation. So actually, they're really passionate about our purpose and making sure that's aligned to kind of our members, our customers that we serve. And so kind of working in that team, I manage a number of our kind of community investment programs that link directly to our purpose, which is about supporting people to build their financial well-being. And in particular was our YBS launching our first ever financial education and employability website, Money Minds, which is what Rachel has just been talking about, and that's for our 11 to 19-year-olds. I previously was a teacher. I was actually a drama teacher, so not necessarily relevant to financial education, but since I've left, I've worked for a lot of youth-focused charities, and one of which was My Bank, which is a youth financial education charity which delivers financial education from kind of age 5 to 25. So that's kind of, I suppose, a lot of where my kind of background comes from. I kind of firmly believe in kind of the importance of financial education and kind of how that helps and supports people to kind of empower them to make informed choices. So I think that's kind of my background and where
that's great. Thanks, Fiona. And I think that's a really good kind of point for us to start on, really. You've mentioned the Money Minds kind of program and resources there. I think, for some of our viewers, I suppose, who may be not familiar with the resource, have not come across it yet, we'll obviously keep flashing it up on the screen as we move through the show. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the sort of program and resources involve, why they sort of came about, and which you've kind of covered a little bit already, and I guess kind of how people can use them, how people can access them.
Yeah, so as I said, it's a major kind of financial institution. So I think there's an element of we have a duty to be able to kind of teach young people about financial education. Sorry, excuse me. Just to kind of set them up throughout their school life. So as I've said, they can make informed choices. Years ago, YBS actually lobbied to have financial education on the national curriculum, which we know was successful. But often just because something is on the national curriculum doesn't mean that it's always taught to kind of the level or experience that teachers have. And actually, and I'm sure Rachel probably had this feedback as well, that a lot of teachers have said to us that they don't actually have the confidence to deliver that particular subject. We also, of course, know that teachers are under a lot of pressure and time poor. So for us, we really wanted to kind of create resources or tools that would take the pressure off teachers. So initially, we actually created an in-person, so Money Minds was in-person delivery of financial education sessions in schools and delivered by our colleagues. And that really kind of provided an opportunity for kind of purposeful activities and volunteering. So that was launched, and since then we've delivered over 30,000 sessions in schools. But we know that kind of since then there's been lots of research surrounding financial education, in particular lots from the Money Advice and Pension Service. We also know that from Money Advice and Pension Service that only 48% of students actually have access to learning about it in schools. So we know there's a real need for it. And also, interestingly, with the shifts and the changes in the pandemic and how children and students are learning in different ways, we really had to think about how we enable accessibility to this information, and also so we can be more far-reaching. There's also some research which said 25% of young people say most of their understanding and knowledge comes from being self-taught. And actually there's a massive rise in that coming from TikTok, from Instagram, from social media. And unfortunately, what we know from that as well, that information is not always accurate. So for us, it kind of brought about a need to have a refresh on kind of our secondary level content that we had. And so in response to kind of all that research, we wanted to complement our in-person stuff and create an online platform. So we partnership with Chatter, who in turn partnership with Gradconsult, to develop the Money Minds platform so that it can be accessed freely by teachers, by parents, by students. And yeah, so they can kind of have this content at their fingertips in the home, in the school, wherever.
Fantastic. Thanks, Fiona. And I mean, one of the things you mentioned, which I know we're going to kind of dig into a little bit more in the show as well, I think was around that kind of social justice element, you know, talking about people being self-taught who might have had access to support from maybe family, you know, in terms of that understanding about financial kind of education. And we've had one of our users with kind of a comment on that, which I'm going to come to in a second, because I know Sabia's going to sort of pick up some of our comments, but I'm just going to flag this one first and then pass over to you, if that's okay, Sabia. So I think this fit really nicely. Facebook user, sorry, we can't see who you are. This has a real social justice element for me. Some young people have been taught this by parents, and it puts them at such an inherent advantage. So yeah, I think very much aligned with what you were saying there, Fiona. Sabia, pass over to you. Any other comments that we want to pick up?
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of sort of kind of comments, thank you firstly, everybody, our loyal viewers, and also if you're new for the first time as well, for sort of kind of popping in. We always love hearing from you and sort of kind of knowing. I've got people here walking the door, dogs in Nottingham. It's wet, but they're still out there. Love it, the fact that you're still listening to us at the same time. You know, I've got one viewer here, Leanne, saying great topic. She's happy that we're exploring financial education and financial literacy and what that means. We've got poor Teresa here. Oh, Teresa, wish you well. As somebody who spent several days sitting on the bathroom floor with the head down the toilet, I completely know exactly how horrible it feels. I do wish you a full and speedy recovery, Teresa. We've got our president, Carolyn, watching here as well. Thank you, Carolyn. We always love your support. Good to know that the sun is shining in Wales. Another Facebook user has just talked about something that I'm going to be talking about in the CDI news. So I'm glad that you talked about that what we've got coming up, actually. More details in the CDI news. Chris is nodding his head. He's like, yeah, it's coming up.
I think it might be Leanne Hambley, Sabia. I think she's repeatedly posted. She's one of our regular posters, obviously. So.
Love it, Leanne. Leanne, I love the fact that you do my job for me this afternoon. As you said, you know, we've got some people talking about here as well. Okay, so are there any resources? So here we've got a question actually. Here, are there any resources for career practitioners working with adults who are unemployed or on low wages? So who wants to take that? Rachel or Fiona? Who wants to go first to answer that question?
I'm not actually aware of any because I've been so focused on like this age group. It's a brilliant question though, Fiona. I don't know if you know of other resources that are out there.
Is this resources that are specifically linked to career or to
financial literacy?
I think financial. I guess I suppose there's some crossover, but I think what's hopefully Facebook user what you're asking here is if we're a careers practitioner working with adults and maybe it's around that being unemployed, being on low wage, and how to support them.
Two things really. In terms of resources, on our website, on our YBS website, I'm pretty sure we have a thing called Money MOT, and there's Money Movement as well, and they have a variety of different kind of bite-sized chunks and calculators and things that you can kind of access and read, and they're targeted at adults. And then the second thing is probably just to kind of flag that actually YBS currently has a really amazing partnership with Citizen Advice at the moment, and actually you can book appointments to speak with Citizen Advice advisor in our YBS branches. There's only kind of about 18 branches at the minute, but so yeah, you can book one-to-one appointments, and that can be about anything, and particularly just really supporting those in those local areas. And of course, the citizens advisors have really kind of localized knowledge. And I know we've seen like really great kind of results and impact on kind of just the level of support that people are receiving and how it's supported and benefited them. So I'd look into that as well.
And is the MAP stuff you mentioned, Fiona, the money and pension advice service, is that stuff also useful for adults, or is that kind of more of a...
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of probably more evidence-based, research-based, but still kind of a useful tool as well. I mean, it's definitely got a lot of information on there. It really just depends on kind of, I suppose, more specifically what it is that they're looking for. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Fiona. And the Facebook user did clarify and say, yes, it's about financial literacy for adults. So they did sort of kind of clear that up as well. So no, Fiona, but you're so right. And I think some of the tools that you talked about as well are transferable, aren't they? I mean, you know, it's sort of kind of like, you know, budgeting, for example. It's something that, you know, that can apply to at any point in your life or your journey, depending upon where you are, whether it's you're trying to save for an education or you're trying to save for an experience in life. You know, one of the things that we're hearing all the time at the moment, aren't we? And I know one of the Facebook users has touched upon it, which is about the cost of living crisis. You know, we're all watching our pennies at the moment, aren't we? We're all thinking about ways of how we can reduce costs. I mean, I ended up watching last night, and I'm not plugging the show, but that Martin Lewis TV show. I kind of caught a little bit of it, and then ended up watching. I was like, yeah, okay, how can I save some money? And you know, he was giving tips and hints about Black Friday sales and Christmas and things. Okay, so we're, you know, so finance is something that impacts all of us at all ages, regardless of our circumstances. And it's about what information do we use and what tools can we access? Because there are tons, aren't there? I mean, I know one of the things that I do as a career professional, and maybe you ladies can talk about this and maybe we'll probably run out of time, but like sort of a lot of my clients, because I'm working with sort of kind of millennials and sort of kind of 30 plus sort of kind of age range and 40, love using apps, like, you know, to sort of kind of track their spend. And a lot of the banks now as well, and I know Yorkshire Bank does as well, like, you know, right, you can like have saving goals. And sort of kind of like, you know, and see, and these are just like sort of little things that can help you, isn't it? That sort of kind of enhance your financial sort of kind of literacy. And I know there's sort of kind of, you know, lots more other things as well. So let us know in the chat box, what other tools, perhaps maybe there's other resources that we haven't spoken about today, or that, you know, our guests today haven't shared about, but perhaps you as a practitioner are using, because one of the things that we do like to do through this show is to increase awareness and to learn and share good practices out there. Now, speaking of good practice, we may have some of our viewers watching today thinking, this all sounds great, but, you know, do I have control over this as a careers professional? You know, why do you think financial literacy is a key part of a young person's education and career development? And Rachel, if I come to you with that question.
I just think they're so linked. It's almost hard to sort of pull them apart, really. If you're enabling someone to make good choices about their career, about what options are available, and like how they can progress and live the life that they want to live, they have to have that foundational knowledge of the financial implications of those different decisions. And it links back to a lot of what I think we've already talked about, you know, this sort of social justice element. You know, if they don't have somebody, I don't know, maybe they're the first person in their family to go to university, they won't necessarily have somebody to talk to about, well, how much is uni going to cost and what will it bring me and what does this student loan mean for me? And these are financial questions that are inextricably linked to their career choices. So I think just really practical, foundational understanding of some of, you know, when we've gone on a bit in our career, we think as like really foundational things that people need to know. But, you know, young people don't necessarily have that. I know from when I was young, we didn't have any kind of financial education. And I was really lucky that it was my dad that kind of explained things to me. I remember getting my first proper job with a proper salary. And I was like, wow, it's more money than I've ever seen. And he was the one who was like, well, it sounds like a lot, but let's look at how do we budget? What is your life going to cost you, you know? And making those informed choices. So I was really, really fortunate, but I know obviously not all young people are that fortunate, to have people in their circle that can do that for them. And I think, again, it goes back to some of what Fiona said about there's a lot of information out there. I think there is a role doing a little bit of myth busting, a little bit of reality checking in terms of, okay, these are options that are available to you. You know, you want this career or that career, that's brilliant. We can't all be footballers or influencers and drive Lamborghinis, fine. But what will your choice of career? What kind of lifestyle might that bring you? You know, giving a little bit of sense of reality and what that would mean. I think as well, like for me anyway, why they're so important and why I think they're so linked, a massive factor is around mental health. And if we're preparing young people for the future and to make informed choices about their career and their future, we have to be able to, we just have to name it, that connection between financial worries and mental health challenges. We can't protect people from financial worries, as we've already said, cost of living crisis, etc. But we can ensure that they can make informed choices so that, if they are going to get a loan, they understand the terms of that loan. If they, if they're going to, like I said, choose to go to university, financially, what will that mean for them in the short term, in the long term, etc. So I think that link there for me is hugely important as we prepare people for future. I don't know, Chris, I think it might have been you that shared it. I saw a brilliant video recently of a young woman. I think she was the youth MP for Wigan and Lee, I think,
Wigan
in the
and Lee,
Northwest.
yes, yeah. Izzy Garbutt, yeah.
Yes, and she just put it so beautifully. Her point was, I can recite the quadratic equation, but if I don't know what tax is, if I can't support my mental health, and she listed a whole bunch of other things, then my education has not prepared me for the world. And I really feel that financial education, understanding, is one of those hugely foundational underpinning things that is a platform that young people can build from.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think there's a lot of consensus here. I think it's interesting sort of reading the chat, huge amount of kind of agreement here about it, but a really interesting comment that's come in, which I'd like to pick up. And again, we might not have direct answers for it, but this has kind of come from one of our Facebook users saying, any tips for careers practitioners? How can they be more confident? We've had this on a few topics before. It came up a little bit when we were talking around some of the stuff around EDI and sort of saying, okay, well, when we know a topic's important and we know it's kind of valuable from a social justice perspective, but sometimes we might not feel confident addressing that or how we address that. Are there kind of things that can sort of help us as practitioners to pick those things up? So that would be really interesting to know, either from yourself or Fiona, do you know if there's any training out there for kind of, teachers or careers practitioners, or I guess from your own perspective, what's kind of helped you to kind of feel a bit more, I guess, confident around talking about financial literacy and education? And Rachel, I'll come back to you first if that's all right, and then we can loop Fiona in.
Yeah, and I think that was, as Fiona mentioned, that was one of the things around Money Minds, why we created it. Because, teachers, people in education, careers practitioners, realize it's so important, but not necessarily feel able to talk about it. And that's why we've designed what we've had, like very engaging and interactive, but really practical questions, examples, activities that you can do with young people that really, we kind of lead people through stage by stage. So it's not an assumed thing that they have huge amounts of financial knowledge and they're going to impart that to the young people that they're working with, but just, able to talk about it in a really practical, easy to understand way with young people. And I can definitely relate to that, because I don't feel like I'm a financial expert at all, but I think we do know a lot of those really foundational and fundamental aspects of managing finances well. Sabiha, I think you mentioned budgeting. Most of us, whether it's on an app or whatever, we do know how to sort of look at a balance, incoming and outgoing, and just really just making kind of those sorts of conversations really normal and just part of how we just discuss the future with young people. I think maybe just taking a bit of pressure off yourself and saying you don't have to be this amazing financial expert to bring these kind of conversations in to your work and normalize it.
100%, Rachel, because it's like, just tracking. Like, I realized once I started tracking my spend, you're thinking, oh my God, Sabiha, how much money are you spending at a coffee shop? Like, do I really need, do you know what I mean? And you're thinking, okay, if I just save that £5 every day, and you sort of kind of start adding it up and you think, wow, that's a lot of money at the end of the week. And then you add it to the month, and then you think about it in a quarter and 6 months and a year. You think, wow, okay, imagine what you could do with that. That could be an extra hop. Do you know what I mean? It could be put towards an experience or a celebration of some sort. You just think, just by sort of kind of taking your cup of tea or your cup of favorite coffee from home, those just sort of kind of simple things, aren't they, that you can introduce that can help you. Well, I'm always a big fan of sort of kind of hints and tips. Go on, Chris.
I think, just you're saying, Rachel, just the raising of awareness, and Fiona, I'd bring you in here as well, if that's okay, just in terms of anything maybe that you'd like to add to that, because I think that's part of what we're talking about is keeping the conversation going. So
I'm laughing here because we've got a little puppy. Well, he's not a puppy anymore, he's 3 years old, but we've got a little dog called Rupert, and it wasn't cheap, and we afforded Rupert purely by using one of those Roundup apps on our banking. With me and my husband, and over like 6 months, just if you bought coffee, and 20p would go into it, and then you can times it by 5 or whatever, and like some months I was kind of like, gosh, where is my money going to? And then I looked in the puppy account, and it was like, oh, I've got £200 in there, or what have you. So it was making me think of a little Rupert bear. But anyway,
I love it. I love it. You got yourself a dog.
So it living proof that actually kind of using these tools and kind of techniques and stuff definitely really help. The other thing I was thinking was it's actually really poignant that we're having this conversation now, because actually last week was Talk Money Week, and I just think it's so vital that people are talking about money, and I think there's one step that anyone takes in in listening to this or kind of speaking with young people or whatever. If there's just one step that you take, it's about just talk about money. And quite often, and it's always said that money is a taboo subject, but it is. Sometimes people just feel awkward about it, they don't know how to approach it. And actually what I would say is about our resources that have been created for Money Minds, they're quite holistic, and they're they really think about or get young people to kind of engage in thinking about what is my relationship with money, how does it link, why are the two linked, why does it affect relationships, how we can sometimes make assumptions about people based on their lifestyle, and actually is it true, do we know, and kind of just challenging those kind of like everyday perceptions that we have, and really making them kind of open up those conversations and getting them to kind of encourage them to have them. And I think that's kind of like the first stepping stone in probably anything, I think, to do with financial education, and that's whether child, young person or adult. And I know someone said in the comments about you can really tell when students of people have had conversations at home, and and that's so true, because parents have such an influence. And another reason why it wasn't just teachers that we were targeting and students, but actually we've got guides as well for parents and carers, so they can kind of start to open up and kind of guide them through kind of conversations. Or if you're going shopping and they say, oh, I really want one of these, well, is it something you need, is it just a want? Kind of, this is our budget, can we afford it, kind of bringing them into and with those conversations, but also involved in kind of working out as well, are just really, really important.
It's such a, as you said, kind of a super important topic holistically that people are going to need to be aware of. And I mean, it fits really well with some of the stuff that's going on with the Career Development Institute, with their career development framework, the one that's been out for a couple of years now, and with some of those kind of pillars around seeing the big picture and those type of things, where, you're really understanding your career, in context. And it's such a nice point, I think, to finish on, because someone's actually kind of mentioned here, I quite like the term livelihood as a way to put income into the context of life choices, balancing career choices with obviously adequate income we all need to survive. So those conversations about money, let's kind of keep those going. We'd love to keep them going even further today, but as always, we are hugely out of time. So we just want to say a massive thank you, first of all, to yourselves, Fiona and Rachel. I hope you'll kind of stay on the call with us maybe for a couple of minutes while we wrap things up. And just to anybody watching, if you do want to get in touch, you can find Fiona and Rachel on LinkedIn. So do get in touch with them, and we'll check them out and see the work that they're doing if you found anything that's kind of taken place today interesting. But for now, we are going to move straight on to our news section and try and wrap this up rather rapidly. So Sabiha, we'll move on to CDI news first. What have we got kind of going on this week? What have you got to share with us from the CDI perspective?
Oh, thank you, Chris. Honestly, I feel as if that sort of kind of whole psychology about money is such a huge thing. Limited mindset, abundance mindset, right? It's such a game changer. But as you said, I think we've just created another show theme, haven't we, for ourselves? CDI News, join and become one of the fellow members of the CDI. You can become, let's start again. CDI, first news. first news story that I picked, okay, CDI AGM, it's fast approaching. It's taking place on Thursday, the 8th of December. It's going to be on Zoom, so don't worry, you can be anywhere, any part of the world, any part of the UK. Starts at 3:30 till 5 p.m. Information's about where you can join are available on the website, so head on over to the CDI website. We've then got information about, again, not long to go now, less than a week to go. Get involved with your professional body. There are 4 board vacancies for the CDI currently, okay, which includes the president-elect, honorary secretary, chair of professional standards committee, and then the elected board director. So if you are interested, or you know somebody who you want to put forward for any of these positions, the closing date for this is now Monday, 4 p.m, November 21st of November. Again, all information is available on the website. And then the final news, we got a little bit of a teaser. I think it was Leanne that was teasing us with this piece of information earlier on in the show, which is the research conference for practitioner. Now, I know it's taking place on Thursday, the 16th of February. In 2023, and some of you might be sitting here and thinking, God, we haven't even got Christmas out of the way, within you're telling us about what's happening in February. Well, yes, I am, because I know so many of you are watching, have busy schedules, busy diaries, and you want to make sure that you get this one in the diary. And the great thing is that if you are a CDI member, a student member, it's free for you to attend. Now, the National Research Conference for Career Practitioners is an annual event brought to you in partnership by the CDI, ISEGS, AGCAS and NICEX. So yep, you've got all the big top players coming together and putting this fantastic careers practitioner event on, the conference on. And this year's theme, or should I say 2023 theme, is around what difference does research make? And the competition for posters is now open. And again, all information and details about this is available, but you hear me talk about it in more details in upcoming shows as well. So that's my wrap up, Chris. What have you got for us?
Rapid. Thank you, Sabiha. That was absolutely rapid. So I will try and do a similar job on my end. So just 3 kind of quick news stories for people across the careers sector, just to kind of flag up at the moment. First one we mentioned at the top of the show, Global Careers Month is here again. You know, it's a combined effort from lots of the European careers organisations, also being celebrated by global organisations and with the support of global organisations as well. So do check that out. There is a link to the opening ceremony that you can find on the Adventures in Career Development blog site. Check it out. Have a look at the hashtags we mentioned earlier, Global Careers Month, Amplifier 2022, to see kind of what's going on. There's some really interesting activity happening all across the globe, which is great. The second story that we've got is a return to careers in the political space. I talk about this too much, so we're not going too political here, but just a reminder that we had the 3rd Education Select Committee hearing this week for careers, education, information, advice and guidance. The recording is now available to watch back on Parliament TV, and it was featuring Ollie de Botton from the Careers and Enterprise Company, and Roger Coates from the DFE talking on behalf of kind of the National Careers Service. So really, really interesting reflections in there, and some stuff that hasn't appeared on previous hearings, particularly about the workforce, so the careers professional workforce. A number of the MPs actually asked about what was being done to address shortages in that area. So it's really nice to hear that actually happening for now. And then the final news story is a slightly shameless plug, but there's some really interesting ethical careers debates going on at the moment, sort of particularly on kind of LinkedIn and Twitter, basically around sort of subjects such as ethical careers policies. So when, for example, careers services or institutions decide to stop working with certain maybe organisations on the basis of ethics linked to things like climate change, for example, and how that may be kind of has implications for ourselves as careers professionals, what those implications might look like. And there's some great articles on the Career Guidance for Social Justice website to kind of dig into if you want to kind of read about that in a bit more detail. So those are my 3 news stories for this week. That takes us very nicely to the end of the show. Last thing, just to kind of give a quick reminder of, is that we are going to be back in 2 weeks' time on Wednesday, the 30th of November at the usual time of 12 o'clock, where we're going to be looking at how education is being reimagined in Microsoft, with Justin Edwards, who's the director of their learning program. So looking forward to that. It's going to be a really interesting session. So until then, thank you to everyone who's joined us today. Massive thank you to Fiona and Rachel for giving up their time to be here. And as always, a massive thank you, Sabiha, for being a wonderful co-host. I will leave you for the final word.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Right. So, guys, remember the hashtag. We want you to get out there and promote and try and capture those good, feel good stories. And we'll see you next time. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.